What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a quick Empoli Juventus Bologna pre-match pre-game. I'm your buddy Dash here to get you guys a little bit ready to go for the match against Empoli, which is going to be our last match before the international break. So again, guys, if you remember, if you're new, hopefully some of you are new, but remember to like and subscribe to the channel. And we'll kick this off by going into Allegri's press conference reading here. Welcome back. So let's kick this off with a little bit of thoughts from Allegri's pre-match presser. So one of the questions that Allegri was asked about this match against Empoli was, speaking during the pre-conference here, Allegri has warned a lot of people, or has been asked about, hey, how do you feel about Empoli? What's your thoughts on it? So verbatim, Allegri responds with, tomorrow's pitfalls are those of all matches. We'll find a team that plays. It's in Empoli's DNA. We have to find a way to play a solid technical game without underestimating their team. So this is kind of in reference to what also happened last season, where we went into Empoli thinking it's definitely a pretty easy 3 points, and we got wiped 4-1 there. So again, Empoli is in last place technically right now at the time of this recording. Lazio is beating Napoli. The thing is what he's trying to iterate. If you look at the previous matches as well, against Hellas Verona and against Monza, Empoli hung in those games offensively. It wasn't that they were completely stifled and shut out. With the game against Monza, Monza was able to get a late double goal or second goal to push them up 2-0, and they only lost against Hellas Verona 1-0. But they did put shots up, and they did put up opportunities in that match as well. So right now, yes, Monza's 0-2, but they aren't to be taken lightly, as well as, like, for example, Napoli shouldn't have taken Lazio lightly, because Lazio did run riot in Naples this evening. So moving on to the defensive starters, because I know a lot of folks have had issues with Sandro, which is deservedly so to some, as well as interesting, a lot of people have been complaining about Danilo, which I'm not really sure why in regards to that. But Allegri was asked about what players are going to be your defensive starters, and Allegri verbatim responds with, there is no starting defense. I have 6 defenders. They're all capable of starting. Right now, Bremer and Danilo will play for sure tomorrow. The only doubt that I have is Alessandro and Federico Gatti. So all of you Gatti fans, rejoice, because there is an opportunity for Gatti to start tomorrow against Empoli. And I know that this was something that was trending last week as well, with a lot of people saying Allegri losing his mind and not doing the post conference with the media. So Allegri does actually address that in his conference here and says, I wasn't feeling so well. Bonnuci came, which is essentially me talking. So no problem. It was, I think, the first time in 20 years that I missed a post-match interview. I wasn't feeling well, and I was coming from a week in which I was battered very weirdly. Pause. I didn't know Allegri gets battered. Huh. It happened. I'm sorry. It will not happen again. So nothing, coach talk, but not really much to read into. So tranquilo, my friends. So the thing that I addressed last week, and a lot of folks in the call-in show as well, was Fagioli not doing very, very well against Bologna, being really pinned down for the most part of the match, in which Allegri responds to, verbatim saying, he is a player who is improving in condition. With the fracture, he missed preparation with us and couldn't play all the time. He can become a great regista, but for now, Loca is the starter. We can play Rabiot, we can play Meretti, then maybe also we can play two-man midfield. 3-4-3. He is doing well. I am sorry for the boos that he received on Sunday, as well as Alessandro. They are 2 reliable players who, like everyone else, can do more or less well. So this is one of those things where he's not throwing Fagioli for under the bus, even though I think that's more so kind of on Allegri for starting Fagioli. Again, I didn't agree with him starting just because of him coming back from his injury in prep time. But, this is something that Allegri normally does, right? Allegri never throws his players under the bus. He's not going to do this in this case with Fagioli here. It's an Allegri-esque response. I mean, he's not going to sit there and be like, oh man, Allegri did some stupid Fagioli did some stupid passes, etc., etc. Again, this is just more so trying to take the pressure off him, saying, hey, he wasn't at 100%. He's going to get there. He'll be good. So obviously, this next one's going to be more so about the transfer market in regards to that. He's saying again, it's closed, not really anything big or anything there to talk about per se. Obviously, I could read all of it, but it's gibberish and jargon. They ask some really dumb questions, like for example, the goal is to be top 4 with a lot of the questions that they're asking, and then who's the favorites. He obviously throws a coach speak saying that Napoli's the favorite because they won it last year. Milan will be decent because of the game that they played against Roma. And then who are some competitors for top 4? He says Inter, Lazio, Roma, Atalanta, and Fiorentina. So no, there's not really anything in there. I don't understand the folks that really try to analyze what he says. It's the second game of the season or third game of the season. Like there's not really anything there. And then again, the last question here: do we have a Juventus squad that can compete for top 4? He says it's competitive. We work every day to improve. The interesting thing that you might want to take from this is he's saying for this season, the team that finishes in 4th place will have 76 points. A lot of you guys understand Allegri is one of those guys that analyzes the schedule and looks at it from a point perspective. So right now he says the Scudetto winner will need 86 to 90 as things currently stand, and then you need 76 to make it into the top 4. So almost a 14 point to 12 point differential between 1st and 4th, which I'm kind of curious to see how he logistically calculates that. And then again, unfortunately for some folks, Szczesny is still injured, as Allegri is saying here. So Szczesny's out at 100% and will not play, I believe, tomorrow, unless something happens. But Dusan Vlahovic complimenting Dusan for being 2 of 2. And also being asked if Paul Pogba is back at fitness. He's at 70%. We'll figure out ways to put him in. I know that there was something about a bone in his leg that apparently will continue to plague him for the rest of his life, and he won't be at 100% and has injuries. I don't want to really read into it too much until I actually see more medical reports on that. It's one of those things where I'm kind of like, let's pump the brakes a little bit before we get a little bit too crazy here. But that's pretty much Allegri's pre-match conference that he has before every game. Not really anything too crazy. I think the one thing that we can take that's interesting is I think we can take 2 things that are pretty juicy. So there's going to be a little bit of a battle between Gatti and Sandro on who starts tomorrow. And the other thing as well is the 76 points for 4th place. Him projecting that to be a threshold. And then we'll talk about the lineup next. Alrighty, so now we're looking at the starting lineup projections, courtesy of our friends from FotMob, or what we like to call the Quadrado stands, because that guy got some of the most outrageous ratings from FotMob. So looking at what we're having here projected, I think there might be a couple of adjustments here, but obviously Perin is getting the nod, and then just because, again, Tech isn't at 100%. So right now it has Danilo, Bremer, and Sandro as your starting center backs, but I do think that there's going to be some interchangeability there with Sandro and Gatti. Wouldn't surprise me. The only thing that we would see differently is in Sandro's replacement, it would be Danilo, and then Gatti would shift to a right center back because it's just his better playing position. So at the middle of the pitch, we've got Weah, Fagioli, Locatelli, Rabiot, and Cambiaso. So I'm going to tell you this, guys. Don't be surprised if we see Cambiaso playing as the right wing back and Kostic playing in as the left. I think Allegri is going to try some adjustments here. I think he's going to tinker a little bit. There's going to be some experimentation for sure. Since Kostic has not been sold, Kostic wasn't used at all the last 2 games, so I think that has to do something with them potentially thinking that he's going to be sold, so they don't want him to get injured per se. So I believe Kostic is going to be fully integrated back, so I think we might see him, and I know our good friend Vlad is going to be thoroughly pleased. The other notable as well is I don't believe Fagioli starts here. I think Miretti starts as the right center mid. It's going to, again, change a lot of the dynamisms in the attack. I think Locatelli will be playing as the regista again, even though I'm not the greatest fan of him being in that position due to his ability to distribute long balls, but it is what it is. And then moving on at the front 2, we've got Dusan and Chiesa. I think that's pretty much a given. I do believe that I think we might see Keane as a substitute this game, but looking on at Empoli over here with their 4-3-3. So they have Perisan as their goalkeeper. They have Kakanse, and then they have Luperto, Ismaili, and Ebui as their back 4. Then their midfield 3 in this 4-3-3 is going to be Fazzini, Grassi, Marin, and then up top they have Cambiaghi, Caputo, and Baldanzi. So obviously they don't have our good friend Parisi that's gone to Fiorentino, who gave them a lot of dynamism on that left side, but Gigi Caputo, even though he's an old veteran, he knows some things about this game. He is able to just pull some crazy stuff and some crazy goals. But again, this Empoli side likes to play fast and furious. Usually that's what happens when you play with a 4-3-3. So we'll definitely see more so how Juve is going to attack this game. I'm kind of curious if we're going to see that inverted wing play that we saw against Udinese. But that's pretty much the starting lineups, guys. I'll go into the tactical breakdowns quite quickly here. Alrighty, guys, I am back over here with the tactical board, so we're going to have a little bit of fun here. So obviously this is Empoli lined up in the 4-3-3, us in our 3-5-2. So some of the things that I've noticed, especially like when we were playing the game against Bologna, where Bologna really kind of stuffed our attack, but one of the things that I think can't happen is if we're thrown into a position like this where we have to send up either Gatti or Bremer, and then Locatelli holds this area here and is your main pinger. So this was one of the issues that kind of did us quite poorly in the previous match. So you move your guys forward up in this position here, and Locatelli essentially becomes where he's interchanging. So Bremer's obviously going to be the anchor here, and the way that Juve want to attack is going to be dependent on more so where Loca is, and that's where Bologna was really able to figure out the game plan here, because the thing is as I pull up my marker here, so when you look at Locatelli here, when he's in this position, obviously as a defender you're expecting it to go either here or here, because Bremer isn't a ball playing center back, so this line gets negated per se. This passing lane is no bueno. So a lot of times, especially against Bologna, it was easy for them because they were able to move a player here to really cause some issues where they would pack the midfield. Because with inverted wing play, you need to essentially have your triangle set up in an efficient manner here. So like, for example, say that we have the ball here on the left and we want to attack from Locatelli. So I'll just erase these marks here for us just to see for clarity. So Loca is going to be moving the ball either to Rabiot or Gatti, which then Rabiot would either transfer it to Chiesa to Cambiasso, or either or in these areas here where you see my ball moving in these triangles. That's how inverted wing play is going to work, because like, for example, say that the situation changes, Rabiot will then overlap Cambiasso, or Cambiasso will pivot into the middle of the pitch. So again, high definition of your inverted wing plays come from this way, as well as, and I think this is going to be effective as well with Moretti and Weah, more so than Fagioli, just because, like, for example, Fagioli would line up in Moretti's position right here against Bologna, and most of his plays would go to die, where I think with Moretti understands more of the right center mid role, more so than Fagioli, and is able to move and get in between these lines. Because what you want to do is you want to bombard these lines and cause some issues more so for Empoli here. You want to overload the midfield and have a midfield advantage, and this is kind of how I think Juve go about it. For example, again, you can interchange here with Loca if you want to attack on the right, because at the regista role, Locatelli is going to be essentially a pseudo right center back or a pseudo left center back, where he then essentially diverts the ball in these positions here to cause these triangles, where you have this triangle here. And then let me see if it'll let me change my color. I guess not. So you'll have that here, and then again with Dusan and Chiesa pulling into this area here, giving you more opportunities, whether for Weah to run or throw a through ball here, Moretti passing in this direction. A lot of it happens in that way, in that direction regards, where you want to have that triangle flow where everyone starts piling in over here. So that's really kind of the gist of the Allegri ball with the inverted wing play. So again, you can interchange Weah and Moretti. One of the things that I think I'm going to be curious to see is how Weah responds to this game, if he is the one that does start or play in this game versus Cambiasso and Kostic, is going to be how are they going to allow Weah to come up and down this right side of the field here, if they do or not, because I think that's one of his strengths, and I believe he was 4 of 4 of crosses against Bologna from that position. So overall, again, look for the attack to really come through Locatelli from building in the back. I know Empoli is going to sit back. They're at home, but they're going to like their chances per se because they are at home. But I would see the ball being developed or built out of Locatelli first before anything else. I don't expect Danilo to be the main developer of plays, just because He can, but he can't as well, and I think Allegri wants Locatelli to be the one that does it. Obviously, you are not going to see Bremer moving the ball forward. Bremer will be passing sideways to Danilo or to Locatelli, or even Gatti if Danilo decides to press forward and leaves Gatti back in the hole. But I do expect Gatti to drive forward just because of Gatti's handles on the ball and his ability to honestly think as a defensive playmaker. But overall, that's kind of the game plan. Juve need to overload the midfield from Empoli and have a midfield advantage here. If they're able to throw in Cambiaso, Weah, Rabiot, and let me get rid of these for you. But if you're able to throw these guys here and have a midfield advantage of 5-3, you're going to start seeing a lot of mismatches in the midfield, which is forcing these center backs to play out of position, which then opens up pockets of space for Dusan and Chiesa, and we all know that those guys are deadly in that. So overall, the game is, if I can give you with one or two things, overload the midfield, create pockets of space, find the area behind it. That's pretty much the tactical breakdown for Empoli. So I'm going to go over some just brief news, and we'll call it a day. So the two big articles that I wanted to cover today is our good friend Kenan Yildiz. Obviously, if you haven't heard, you should have heard already, but he has signed an extension. He will be here until 2027. Crazy how we brought him in just 12 months from Bayern Munich's youth academy. He's a free player that we developed through the next gen, pulled him into the first team, and he's actually gotten minutes in the first two games. Awesome. He is the favorite haircut guy, if you guys seen it. So that's going to be the one thing. So the next thing is officially official. Leonardo Bonnuci leaves Juventus and signs for Union Berlin. Say what you want about the player. He was there for the 9 Scudetti. I don't want to throw legend loosely around, but he was a very, very substantial piece in Juve's success. Some of you can argue saying he's not a legend. Some of you can. I'm going to refrain from that. I don't really care. Thank you for your services, Bonnuci. Have fun for the rest of your life. That is my thoughts there. But Juve have officially announced on Friday that he has left with a thank you, Bonnuci. And he has gone to play in the Champions League with Berlin, which is interesting. And, we have some friends here that follow Union Berlin as well. So, yeah, they'll get to see some Bonnuci in the Bundesliga. He will join his friend Matthias de Ligt and fight for the Bundesliga. But other than that, thanks, Leo. Alrighty, guys, as I jump up and down, yeah. Alrighty, guys, thanks for tuning in and watching this Bologna pre-match, get ready, news/fun jazz and all that stuff. Again, guys, remember I said it at the beginning of the video, I'll say it at the end. Make sure you like this video, also subscribe, and also share it to your friends and refer it to as well. Also, I believe the link is in the description, but join the Discord. It's really fun stuff. We're going to be doing some fun activities. Also, get news in regards to our EAFC 24 Pro Clubs team that we're starting. Kudos to Frankie, or aka Gatti Lover 101. But again, guys, thanks for tuning in. I will catch you tomorrow on the watch along and the post-match call-in show. But again, guys, Forza Juve, fino alla fine.